there is this aspect of our human experience on this planet that carries forward this recognition of the invisible that we do not want to educate out of our children. We want it to be a part of them, a part that they always respect and recognize in themselves, in others, and in the world.
This is Reclaim Your Magic. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Jess Phillips, and today we are reclaiming the magic of childhood education through a conversation with Waldorf educator Rainbow Rosenblum. We are talking all about the awe and the wonder that is so crucial to the development and education of our children, and where and how we can all be homeschoolers. Whether you send your children to private school, public school, or you homeschool, we are all educators at home, and there are ways that we can show up as parents to bring that sense of awe and wonder and inspiration into the lives of not only our children, but also ourselves. So without further ado, let's dive into the magic. You said everyone is a homeschooler, right? Everyone teaches their kid at home.
We have to broaden our understanding of what education is. We have been acculturated to think of education as happening in school, and the expanded experience of education into homeschool doesn't change the paradigm. It's still people trying to make school happen at home instead of recognizing that education happens and is happening literally every breath we take.
I want to talk a little bit about the Waldorf approach. So I currently use Rainbow's curriculum, live education, for my 6-year-old daughter, and also in part for my 8-year-old son. And we really, really love it. And what I love about Waldorf so far, and we're at the beginning stages of our journey here, is I love just the beauty and the wonder and the magic that feels involved. It feels like you're in alignment with education. It doesn't feel sterile or boring. It feels very much alive. And it's one of my favorite things so far about the curriculum. But I would love to hear just, in a few sentences, what the Waldorf education is really all about.
Well, we started, I mentioned initially, to help guide a child to become a citizen of the world, which includes recognizing the other and what they're feeling and experiencing. I mean, that's a big part of Waldorf. And then secondly, you were talking about discernment. That's another big part. So connecting and discerning. And then the strategies or the vehicle within Waldorf to do those things and build those capacities include an infusion of the arts. Not art as a separate subject,
Right.
but every subject having an artistic element to it. So the children aren't trained to think of art separately from math and language and so forth, but that art is everywhere. So that's one important piece, as well as story and narrative as a primary vehicle for the archetypes that enrich the souls of the children. So these archetypes are so powerful, and they live inside them in deep, silent ways that you can always return to, reminding them of a story that then has an impact for something going on in their life right now.
Yes, I love that so much because I feel like, human beings we're story-based creatures. I feel like what sticks with a child is a story, right? It's not a fact necessarily, but it's the story. And what I would say from my own personal experience is that right now with Penelope, she's doing the first grade and we're going through, the consonants, and now we've moved on to the vowels, but each letter has a story that you read with it. You have tongue twisters, you have poems, and you have a piece of art that you ultimately draw. And what is so beautiful is that when her recall comes in, she's like, "Oh yeah, mommy, that's an M, like in, mountain, when we drew the M into the form of the mountains because M naturally makes that shape, and talking about the story that was involved in the mountain." Like, it's that recall is so clear and so sharp for her because it's not just something that's been kind of gone into her mind. It's almost like it's gone into her entire being. She's absorbed the essence of the M instead of just "Oh, this is what an M looks like." So,
So that's what happens. This is really going back to the first thing I was talking about, connection. We're
mhm,
trying to help children to connect to the letters.
yeah,
So in normal or mainstream educational trends, um, connection isn't part of the intention. It's
mhm,
really designed for dispensing information and then testing the child to see if they have retained the information. This is hundreds of years old, this approach to
mhm,
education, and um, and it's just so limiting. So
yes,
it's not just to learn the letters, but you want to connect the child to the letters, to the
mhm,
sounds, the gesture, the form. And in so doing, they will remember and retain because they have this connection. It's not brought to them as abstract bits of information that they're supposed to remember, but it's brought to them in story that
mhm,
speaks to who they are. And they develop, you know, a relationship to the letters as they hear the stories of each. And it's the same thing with the
yeah,
numbers, so that the letters and numbers can live inside as these forms, as these archetypal beings, so to speak, that
yeah,
then can form words and form equations and so forth. But they first have this connection to them.
yeah. I think it's a really beautiful approach. I mean, it's one that's worked really well for us. I'd love to talk about maybe the Waldorf approach or your view on education and that mind, body, spirit connection that is so important.
We're so used to looking at the divine as outside of us, when of the real practice of the real practice of dancing with the divine is recognizing what a human being is, and
Mhm,
that's the primary principle of Waldorf education. There's so many
mhm,
people that call themselves religious, but they practice this lack of divine in the educational approach because children are viewed as information receptors and teachers are viewed as information dispensers. That has nothing to do with the divine or the spirit. That has to do simply with the communication of information. And I'm not
mhm,
saying that isn't part of the educational experience, but it becomes a far richer part when you recognize who it is that you're bringing this information to and what means you're using to bring it forward. And likewise, when a child is recognized as a being of body, soul, and spirit, when there is the invisible that is part of who you are meeting, there's a greater probability of humility arising both with the teacher and with the child. We have no idea what each individual child is bringing forth in potential. What is their destiny? Who are they going to become? And when you treat them with that kind of wonder, I guess you could say, you are not simply restricted to how they're behaving in the moment. You know that there's far more awaiting that child's life, and you're here as a teacher and as a parent to midwife that. And it's all about
mm,
connection. So there is spirituality in the world, in the earth. and you want to build a bridge of access for the child. And by spirituality, I'm not talking about anything having to do with religion. I'm having
Mhm.
to do, although religion was built upon this understanding, I'm talking about the celebration of the wonder and the awe that surrounds us. So, when you're teaching children and bringing forth educational activities in the middle school years, in the Waldorf approach, it comes up in the 8th grade, but any time in the middle school years or even the high school years that you're considering the wonder and miracle of weather,
Mhm.
it comes with this recognition, not that there isn't something scientific there, but that the science is so remarkable that you are saturated in paradox when you're teaching about the hurricane and the when you're bringing forth this picture of these storms and then recognizing that in the eye of the storm there's perfect tranquility. That kind of paradox is a great teaching for the children because
Yeah.
now they have to think differently. They have to
Mhm.
recognize that within all of this chaos, there
Yeah.
can be some order.
Yes.
Within all of this extreme anxiety producing activity of the earth, there can be something quite calm. And
Mhm.
they are not too young to be guided to recognize this is going on inside you in puberty. There are all of these hormonal changes that are akin to storms. But where are you in the middle of that? Where's that understanding of what isn't changing in you?
Mhm.
Where is the Jessica in that
Mhm.
storm? And so the
Yeah.
teacher is there to always recognize, or the parent is there to always acknowledge what lives unchanging as that
Mhm.
human being deals with everything that is changing at the same time. So there is this through the curriculum, through the rigorous academic approach, when there's an understanding of who the human being is that's part of that teaching, it changes everything.
It does.
The same
Mhm.
thing at that time when we're teaching about the revolutions in history, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Bolivian Revolution, everything going on in the late 18th century through the 19th century. All of these revolutions are such fascinating stories for our adolescents at that time
It's so true.
because they are feeling their own revolutionary nature coming to birth. And they
Mhm.
will be fed by hearing these stories of what arose with individual courage to overcome the enslavement of their humanity through the power of kings and dictators and what democracy how democracy arose and what it arose to meet in the individual and the struggle to maintain that through
Mhm.
the different power structures that arose. So it's all so fascinating for them at that time. Waldorf recognizes it. But then when you force feed children in the 3rd grade stories that they're not ready for, like
Right.
the revolutions, and
Mhm.
it's not that they will not have heard about it, just like 9-year-olds will have heard and maybe experienced hurricanes, but that's
Sure.
not the time to study them. So
Right.
it's time to study something else. And that's one of the great beauties of Waldorf education is recognizing that the content that you're bringing is most accessible for children at very specific ages. And that's something that is missing from conventional educational approaches.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. And I love anytime you can ground something into an experience in terms of what's actually going on for the person, it's always so much more relevant. I mean, I didn't really give two hoots about a lot of stuff before it came relevant to me, right? I wasn't, before I became a mother, I wasn't learning about parenting. I wasn't thinking about homeschooling. I wasn't doing any of this. And it would have been a fool's errand to start doing that when I was 25. But when I hit 33 and I had my first kid, whoa, baby, there we go. Right now, I'm on the path. I was thinking about homeschooling, years before we started. It was a slow build because I was interested in midwifing the journey of or the guidance of my children through, very important moments in time for them. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
That's slightly different. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's slightly different.
Okay.
Um, it applies here as well. It
Sure.
shows that when there is interest, you're
Hmm.
wide open to explore,
Exactly.
which is, a tenet of unschooling, which a lot of Waldorf homeschoolers like to bring in. And so it's like, how yeah, how do you how do you engage your children
Yeah.
in something that they have not yet met? And so you bring them to a place and see if you could somehow bring about interest. And then, like you
Hmm.
said, you weren't interested in thinking about education or parenting until
Hmm.
you had that. But what I'm talking about is different. I'm
Okay.
talking about, well, all that you say there is true and relevant. What I'm talking about is, um, when through the stages of development,
Right.
who you are as an unfolding human being is ripe and ready for particular kinds of educational experiences. Um, there are plenty of people at age 25 that are, I was younger than that when I became enamored of what educational revolution can be. So
Hmm.
it wasn't that, those kinds of things aren't waiting for you to be 33 or whenever you have your child. It comes
Sure.
up in your life when something is triggered by what you see.
Right.
With children, it's different. With children, there are definite stages of development, and it's not just Steiner that noticed this. Piaget certainly did in the constructs of thinking, and other people. Um, that when children go through certain stages of development, they are able to access different aspects of their environment that were left um, that were not available to them
Right.
earlier. And you have to watch and see because there's it's individualized to a degree. Some
Hmm.
children stay younger longer and can be impeded through the forcing of reading or anything abstract. And
Okay.
when you're homeschooling, you need to see, is your child accessing this material at this time? And get
Hmm.
away from the benchmarks, even the Waldorf ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Others are ready a little bit younger. And so you have to
Hmm.
watch to see, is this lighting up in them? To do that, as a teacher and a parent, you have to recognize the more nuanced aspects of seeing somebody lit, somebody
Hmm.
um, activated, energized,
Yeah.
which is another topic for another subject. How do we do that with our adult friends as well?
Yes.
How do we
Yeah.
do that in our love relationships? How do we
Hmm.
recognize what's coming alive in the other that will then help us to connect? And if we are too self absorbed to really notice the nuances of the other, then it will always be a dead end. So, but with children specifically, and you're guiding the children, you need to see, and there's certain activities that are wonderful across all ages. Baking bread, for example,
Hmm.
and children get to see the magic of bread rising. Something it's something of a spiritual experience, really. They get to
Yeah.
see the alchemy of what
Hmm.
they had, these flour, grains, ground up flour and yeast, and you're putting things together, and you're waiting and warming, and you're watching this transformation. When they're in 3rd grade, they get to study the science of it because it's the perfect time for that. When they're younger, they get to experience the wonder of it. And so
Yeah.
we're not keeping children away from the experience of these subjects. that come on to layer. It's just how do we bring them into that world? Do we want to bring these abstract explanations, scientifically based, when a young child really wants to be in a state of awe and wonder about it? So that's another
Mhm.
aspect of Waldorf that needs emphasizing too. The
Yeah.
relevance and the understanding of awe and wonder in your children.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
And you
that's
never
I
want that
think
to ever be fully left behind, but when you add science to something that's been kind of baking inside them through wonder
Mhm.
and awe, that combination of science with wonder is so beautiful. And it's a
Yeah.
natural time when they're 11, 12, 13. There's a natural intersection of that
Yeah.
Waldorf loves to emphasize and work with.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's nothing more for me as a parent, there's nothing more incredible than seeing the look of awe and wonder in my children's face when we do something like baking bread or baking muffins, or we go outside to look at the stars, or, like we see the caterpillar hop into its cocoon and then turns into a butterfly. And it's just this like, it just feels like magic everywhere. Right. And I think for me
So
too,
this is
yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is exactly the gift that homeschooling brings the parent,
Exactly where I was
um,
going to. Yeah.
even if you're only part-time homeschooling,
Yeah.
because you are reacquainted with the magic that was taken too early from you in your own educational experience. So you get to re-examine, re-explore, reactivate yourself through the
hmm
experiences of your children, should you allow it.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a really beautiful thing. Is I think it's a really beautiful gift as a parent. And it's one of the things that I enjoy so much about doing this is the rekindling of that magic. And a lot of the stories I'm reading I'd never read before. So this is me reading it for the first time and experiencing it
Mhm.
for the first time too. And
Yeah,
the kids can feel when you're excited about something. You make it better, you make it more interesting, you
absolutely.
make it you. And it's like that. I think that for me, what I wanted to do when we set out with the homeschool journey is I wanted learning to be fun because I love to learn. It's like a lifelong thing for me. I'm always learning something. I'm always trying to master a new, modality. And my kids see me doing that all the time. I bring, relevant things to them as well. And it's just, learning is so much fun, right? Learning is fun, and you learn through like you said, you learn through so many different ways. It could just be observing, right, when they're young. But like, gosh, isn't it so cool that we can just I don't know, I just think that's one of the coolest things about being a human is you just have an endless amount of things that you can learn if you really want to.
Yeah, I would have to expand the notion of
Sure.
fun to make
Okay.
that more accessible. Um,
Sure.
when we think, "Oh, learning needs to be fun," then we immediately go to games or and
Oh,
because fun is limited in our
yeah,
experience, it's
that's true.
entertainment and that sort of thing. Whereas when you were speaking about the children learning from the parents' activation in something.
Mhm.
You could say it's fun, but that's, as a sapio, I like words that are a little bit more
Sure.
precise. Yes, it
Sure.
is fun too. I'm not at all disagreeing with that, but
Yeah.
it's really, it's activating, I think
Yes.
is more. It's
Mhm.
it's energizing. It's creating this
Definitely.
this bridge. I and maybe some of your listeners will say,
Mhm.
I really I can't teach, especially as my children get older. I can't really teach them. I'm not a trained teacher. I don't
Right.
know this stuff. And
Right.
sure, live education brings forth the stories and the lessons that can prepare you. But even more than that, I want your audience to understand that um, children's access to the world, to the information that you're trying to bring, can
Mhm.
sometimes be, in fact, often be hindered by a parent or a teacher that really knows things too well.
Mhm.
Because then
Yeah.
a child could feel, wow, um, I'm not really that smart. my mom or my teacher knows this so well, and I'm not really catching on to it. And so you close off to arithmetic and algebra
Mhm.
or fractions. So I say this so that parents could relax a little bit. Children
Mhm.
aren't looking for you to be an expert or a
Exactly.
specialist. I'm sure there's something each of you may be expert in, and that's something that your children may appreciate in some way. But what they're really looking for is somebody that first and foremost loves them,
Mhm.
recognizes them, and acknowledges them. That's first and foremost underlying everything you do. And then when you're doing something, to be doing it with your whole being,
Yeah.
not repeating something, but your whole engagement. That's what they're really looking for. And your engagement, your aliveness is what's really teaching them. And you know that. Every parent knows that when you go on a trip, a family trip, whether it's nearby and you're going to a park, your
Mhm.
engagement is essential.
Yeah.
If you're just there because the child needs to go someplace and you get on your phone or your computer and tell them
Mhm.
go play, there's no educational import
Right.
having to do with you as a bridge. But when you put that aside and you're focusing and you allow yourself to light up through the
Mhm.
experience, whether it's a sunrise, basically not taking anything for granted and
Yeah.
focusing on the celebration of life with your children. This is a huge educational experience for them that they
Mhm.
will never forget.
Oh,
And
1,000%.
you will never forget.
1,000%. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's when you make those beautiful memories and, like, it's also a great gratitude practice, right? So, just to not to take anything for granted.
Absolutely. It's an essential.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know
That's
my
where gratitude arises.
arises, exactly, and I know my three-year-old, anytime we're out and it's late enough, which, in the summer is not always, available to him, but he spots the moon anywhere we are. He is the moon guy, and we know, we're like, "Okay, William, where's the moon?" And he's like, "Oh, it's right there," and we all look at it, and we ooh and we ah, and we went out the other night for the lunar eclipse, and we were like, "Wow, look at this, this big, huge, beautiful full moon," and, like, we talk about the power of the moon in our lives and things, and it's just like it almost sounds so cliche. Like, "Really? Really? That's what you guys do?" And it's like, "Yeah, actually, that is what we do." And I call that a lesson. Like, in my homeschool, that's a lesson. In my homeschool, going on our family trip we spent 2 weeks in Costa Rica earlier this year, and that was like our huge homeschool field trip for for the time frame, and we studied all about Costa Rica, and, we were out there and we're in it, and you're in the rainforest, and my three-year-old still asks for, like, the howler monkeys to play them, on the, um, at breakfast sometimes so he can remember, the howler monkeys. And the kids are like, I want to go back to Costa Rica and see more animals and, all these things that are like just so incredible. And to be so connected with the earth and have a deep understanding of like, this isn't, I guess this is what we were saying earlier, but it's not just us here. And these animals are over here outside. It's like we're all in this together. We're all living in the same ecosystem and appreciating the fact that we have deer going through our yard every single morning. That never gets old for us. So, yeah, the magic of life
Good.
is available to anyone who
Tom's
is willing to look.
so it's not cliche. And Tom Stoppard
Uh-huh.
wrote a play that's pertaining exactly to your experience of the moon
Mm,
with William.
mhm.
And it was called Jumpers.
Okay.
And it was about a grown man who was just it was set in the time
Mhm.
when man walked on the moon.
Okay.
1969, I think, is when it was set. And there was this wistful, kind of nostalgic, poetic philosopher
Yeah.
that Stoppard was writing about, who was challenging the scientific achievement of walking on the moon, because how could we ever write a poem again about the moon
Mhm.
now that man has walked on it? And so it
Yeah.
was a very interesting, um, moving dialogue between people regarding this event, and that there's something very poetic that
Yeah.
naturally occurs in children that
Mhm.
somehow is educated out of us. William
Mm.
Wordsworth wrote a poem about that too, called Ode, Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood. Something is educated out of us. This, not so much the poet, but this experience that the poet maintains, this connectivity, this awe, this wonder that we have to find a way, and I believe Waldorf has, that
Mhm.
introduces children to rigorous science without killing the spirit, without educating them out of wonder and awe, but
Mhm.
rather to be along with it. I was just watching a biography of Einstein the
Huh.
other night, and he was always in this state of awe as his imagination when he was a patent clerk and writing these, you know, groundbreaking papers on
Mhm.
relativity. And he was imagining what it would be like to be moving faster than light and and it was all in his imagination. He was basically
Mhm.
daydreaming it. And so he was in this state of wonder as he was then meeting a scientific assessment of where his wonderment was taking him. So there was this
Mhm.
beautiful combination. We can't educate that out of our children. That is something we have to protect. This
Yes.
connection, and that's what I would say, this connection with the divine
Mhm.
being the invisible, that which we
Yeah.
connect to.
Mm.
So there is this aspect of our human experience on this planet that carries forward this recognition of the invisible that we do not want to educate out of our children. We want it to
Yeah.
be a part of them, a part that they always respect and recognize in themselves, in others, and in the world.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. And it does lead me to believe that, like, everything when you're trying to set up an experience, you're trying to midwife the education or just the life experience of your children, it does ultimately come back to yourself. And, if you don't believe in the magic and the wonder and the awe, or you don't recognize it in your daily life, how could you enact that for your children? So it does seem to
I'm going
me
to say
that it
it's even
really
more than that, Jess.
okay, please do.
I'm going to say it's more than that.
Okay.
It's not only you can't just recognize the magic or think
Mm,
about it. You actually have to feel it. So
yeah.
there is, and I hope that's not too tall an order. You clearly feel
No.
it. You're in touch with the
Mhm.
magic, but we so quickly bring it into the realm of content, another bit of information. Oh, there
Yeah.
is magic part of this. And so we think about it.
Yeah.
Beyond all of that, there must be the experience of that. You
Yeah.
need to experience not to the degree that the child does, but a part of you. Experience the natural joy. In that poem that I referred to by Wordsworth, um, he begins it with the words, "There was a time when meadow, grove, and stream, the earth and every common sight to me did seem apparelled in celestial light, the glory and the freshness of a dream. It is not now as it hath been of yore. Turn wheresoe'er I may, by night or day, the things which I have seen, I now can see no more." That's the beginning of this
Mhm.
powerful poem that I learned to teach to that adolescent class that I was just speaking about, because
Mhm.
that is the experience of every adolescent. There is this natural course of things where what you were as a child is just a faint memory. You're now moving into, as a teen, you're moving into this new experience. Wordsworth talked about it as the sun rising, the dawn, and Steiner talked about the dawn of consciousness in the 12th
Mhm.
year. where you are becoming aware and you're able to become more scientifically adept. You pay more attention, you see things more clearly.
Mhm.
But what's lost is that experience of seeing things not with clarity, but with your kind of more in your dreamlike sequence with your heart.
Mhm.
And Wordsworth talked about that it was escaping him. It was leaving, and he ends the poem, I think it was, "What though the radiance, which was once so bright, be now forever taken from my sight? Though gone is the hour of splendor in the grass and glory in the flower." He didn't know how to go further with it, but
Mhm.
yes, there is an element of it that is gone if you don't know how to bring it forward in with your newfound insight scientifically.
Mhm.
But that's something that the parent and the teacher
Yeah.
can help midwife in the child, this new consciousness without cutting off the glory in the flower and splendor in the grass. Still write poetry, still
Mhm.
lay in it, celebrate it. We just have to be reminded that that experience is there for us too. And we can do it
Yeah.
in our everyday life with our children. When we're
Mhm.
eating, we're not just eating to fill our, our hunger to eradicate those pangs. We are eating to celebrate our connection to the earth, to the bounty of the earth. Whatever it is that we're eating, it should be of high quality. It should be lovingly cooked. It should be
Mhm.
celebrated in its yumminess. And when children
Mhm.
are used to that every single day, that's a vehicle. That's a home education. That's homeschooling in
Yeah.
the that every parent does daily to acquaint their children with this bounty and the celebration of the deliciousness. So they are being reminded of this joy every single time they eat. That's just one small,
Yeah.
not that
Mm.
small, but part of what homeschooling can bring.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that example because I do as a homeschooler, obviously, I identify with that, but I love it for all the people who are, not doing homeschool, how they can enjoy and how they can bring that sense of awe and wonder, um, into things that we do every single day, right? These are all little mini rituals, right? The eating of dinner, the washing up, the cleaning, all that sort of stuff, the walk after dinner. Um, it's all there and it's all.
Yeah, we talk about it in our kindergarten curriculum.
Mhm.
Yeah,
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 yeah, exactly.
that's something for all ages.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I do the kindergarten curriculum is so sweet and so special, and we did do that with Penelope. I do love how I just love how nature is such an integral part of everything, because I do feel like we're fairly disassociated, with nature in today's current world, but, um, yeah, that's, like, reason 10,052 to have kids is to relive the magic of the world, and you can fire that, you know you can rebuild that fire in your own soul and have such a beautiful appreciation. I know I feel like I see that a lot in grandparents, but, um and the parents too, It's a different maybe a different perspective at a different stage in life, but all worthy of recognition in their own right. So, really beautiful.
Let's see, we
Yeah.
only have a few more minutes left, don't we? Is
Yes.
there anything that you'd like me to cover? Are there any questions that you have that you think your audience will be interested in?
I have 2 questions for you before we go. If someone is interested in learning more about Waldorf education, where would you point them? And then also, if someone's interested in actually looking at the curriculum that you've put together, which I think is really wonderful, um, where can they find you?
Well, I would say the answer to both those questions are the same. They could come
Right.
to Live Education. So it's
Mhm.
live-education.com.
Mhm.
We have a full site. And so we have samples of curriculum and explanations of Waldorf and so forth. So I think that would be a good place
Yeah, I think
to
that's
start.
right, and I would
Live-education.
I would throw in, just to throw my hat in the ring there, I would say also if you're interested in, if you are homeschooling or if you're not and you just want to add some Waldorf fun to your life, what I love about your approach to the people that you work with is that it's not just here's the curriculum, goodbye. It is, you also comes with this like direct line to you where you can hop on and ask questions. If you're struggling with something, you can do that. Like there's support in this, which I think is important because as we discussed, a
Yeah.
lot of times this is parents learning right alongside their kids, and that can be an overwhelming experience for a lot of people. So knowing that you're not alone in that, I think is huge. So I would say that
Yeah, and
as well.
I do give I do give, parent presenta parent presentations that are live streamed on Zoom.
Hmm.
Will pro and so just signing up, for our newsletter that will announce that, or, um, just checking our site from time to time, and that's
Hmm.
a little bit more interactive than a podcast would be, and so
Sure.
that's something that may be of interest. I
Yeah.
also have a Zoom class for teens, that's been
Mm.
going on for years. Um, Not a big commitment. It's an hour a week for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and then we put it to rest, and then we come back a few months later and do it. So, it happens about twice a year.
Okay.
Uh, so, um, and the teens are primarily Waldorf homeschooling teens, but anyone can join, where we, discuss some of this invisible stuff that I've been, um,
Yeah.
talking about, but in the context of our relationships.
Hmm.
And so we've talked a little bit about friendships, and
Yeah.
it's helping students and teens at this time to really understand what's whispering inside you and where is
Yeah.
it there? How do you bring it forward in your voice?
Hmm.
How do you form your friendships? How do you choose a best friend? How do you
Yeah.
know that you're trusted or can trust? And what does it mean to be attracted to another human being? So we have these
Sure.
conversations, in a very safe place
That's great.
where, we can explore what it really means to come of age, what
Hmm.
it means to find your voice, what it means to form an opinion, and, so that's something that I wanted to mention as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful because I do know a lot of people, even people that I know who have kids in traditional school are pulling them out actually in middle school because they feel that it's too overwhelming of a time and the environment is much too intense for their child, which I
Yeah,
applaud their ability to do that and their discernment there too. So, all right, well, Rainbow, this is a beautiful
good.
conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it,
thank
and you are welcome back anytime.
thanks, Jess. It's great to see you again, and hopefully this topic will enliven some of your listeners
Yes,
as to
absolutely.
r as to their parenting and education. Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate you.